Hey, what's up everybody? It's Jordan Bruce from the Puffco group. I'm just going to be doing one of those little hands-only videos on how to change out the coil in the atomizer of your Puffco Peak. So I've got everything that you will need for the change right here in front of me. So this is the actual Peak with the atomizer that we're going to change out. This is just a little ceramic ring at the top of the atomizer. This is the puff coil repair coil that we're going to be swapping out. This is the little rubber grommet that will go with the brass ring on the bottom of the atomizer. This is the little ceramic chair that the coil will sit on top of. This is the jig that is included with the puff coil repair kit, which, to be honest, I don't exactly use all that often. I usually just use my finger to hold the whole assembly straight. This is a pair of tweezers, which I will be using to create the bend in the one lead that we'll be talking about in a minute. And I have a set of puff coil flush cutters that came with the puff coil repair kit. So that's everything that you'll need to change out your coil. It might look a bit intimidating with all this stuff sitting here, but it's actually quite easy. So we'll get right into it here. So the first thing you'll want to do is remove the atomizer. So unscrew your atomizer from your Puffco Peak. So we'll do that now. And I won't need the Peak until the rest of the video when we put the atomizer back in at the end. So I'll just get it out of the way for now. And then the first thing that we're going to want to do is take our atomizer apart. So if this is unfamiliar to you, this part can be a bit intimidating, but I assure you it's pretty easy. Everything comes apart quite easy. So we'll start by taking off the ceramic ring and the rubber ring on the top. Just pull it right off. We have a bowl on the inside that we will take out as well because it's cold, so it's easy to touch. And then we're left with the part that we're going to change. So this part here, the brass ring, although it might look like it's fixed in there, you can really just kind of pull it out with your fingernail. So I'm just going to dig it out right now. Just get your nail underneath it, and there we go. It's starting to come out. And it just pops right out like that. So there you go. Here's this little piece, this little brass ring, or this little brass pin, I should say. So I'm going to put this down right here for the time being. And then I've got the little insulating rubber grommet on the inside. So one of the things that I use my pointy tweezers for is to pull this little rubber grommet out. So I'm just going to go inside here. I hope I'm getting a good camera angle here. I'm just going to kind of pinch it with my tweezers, and you literally just pull it out. You might feel like you're being rough or whatever, but it really is just as easy as reaching in there and pulling it out. The only thing that you have to worry about with your atomizer is just the metal shell, so it's obviously quite durable. So again, you just got to reach in there and pull out this little grommet. I actually prefer to reuse the original black grommet as opposed to the green ones that came in the puff coil repair kit that I got. And the reason for that is because the inside of these black grommets actually have, you probably won't be able to see them on this camera, I don't know. They have these little ridges on the inside that you can see that as they compress will hug the brass pin and the lead connection tighter. These little ridges are absent on the puff coil repair rubber grommets, as you can see. So I just find you get a better connection with the original black rubber grommet. So for the purposes of this demonstration, that's what I'm going to use. So at this stage, we have taken out our brass pin right here, and we've taken out our rubber grommet. The next step would be to remove the coil and chair assembly inside. So we've got our leads, or our little wires, whatever you want to call them, sticking out the bottom here from the previous coil. So I'm just going to remove it. One of the wires is bent in here, so we'll just sort of pick it out. There we go. And the whole thing just popped out. So that's how easy it comes apart. A lot of the times it might be gummed in there because you might have some reclaim all gummed up in there or whatever else holding it down. But in this case, I did it with a pretty clean atomizer just so I could give a good demonstration. Now, at this point of the rebuild, normally what I would recommend you do is to get yourself some 99% isopropyl alcohol. And normally what I do is I like to warm up the isopropyl a little bit, but at this point of the rebuild, normally what I would do is I would be cleaning my atomizer. So or the shell, I should say. So I'm not going to heat it up this time because that might be a bit time consuming. But I'm still going to give it a little soak. So into my iso bath it goes. And for the next couple of minutes, we are going to let the atomizer shell sit in the alcohol. It's pretty clean to begin with, so this should not take long to clean up. Okay, so we're going to get the old coil and chair out of the picture for now, and we're going to start our rebuild. So for these next steps, what you're going to need is this little ceramic chair right here, and you're going to need the coil itself. So we're going to get into the actual rebuild itself. So an important thing to know is that we are going to be, if you can see these two little holes here, try to make them clear in the light, these two leads are going to be going through these two holes, but you want to make sure that you have it on the right side, right? So you have these little spiky stubs on one side, and then you have these rectangular ones on the other side. Okay, so you're going to want to have the coil sitting on top of the little spiky ones. Okay, so we're going to do that now, and I'm going to let you watch as I put the two leads into the little holes. Okay, so we've got it like this. Then we're just going to slide it all the way down. Okay, once we've got it all the way down, those little feet should be sitting flush with the coil, like you see right here. So it's sitting nice and flat, right? So at about this point, if you wanted to, you could normally start involving the jig. Again, if you have steady hands, you probably won't want to use the jig, but the idea is for the coil to sit still in this little spot so you can do all the rest of the work that you need to do. I'm going to give my atomizer a little swish here. And then I'm going to just take it out of that little bath for it to dry off for a step or two from now when we start the rebuild. So at this stage now, we have our coil and chair assembly sitting together like so. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to bend one of these leads. And this is a part where some people get a little bit caught up, but it's actually very, very easy. So these leads are very durable, so don't worry about like breaking them or anything while you're manipulating them. You'd have to really work them to break them. So they're, like I said, you don't have to be too careful. But basically the idea of what we're going to do right here is we're going to take one of the leads, and it doesn't matter which one. We're going to make a 90-degree bend, so a straight sideways bend. And then we're going to make another bend like that to face the lead back up toward the center. So I'll do that right now. So I'm going to go one 90-degree bend, so pinch it with my tweezers, bend it inward 90 degrees, just like this. So it's got a sharp bend. Notice how everything's fine, nothing's breaking. And then right at the center, right at the hole of my ceramic, I'm going to give it another 90-degree bend straight up. Just like that. There you go. So now I've got two bends in it, two 90-degree bends, and my lead is sticking up right in the center, right around the center of the assembly, okay? So those bends were real easy to make. I didn't have to worry about snapping anything off. But now the idea is that this lead is going to go up straight through the bottom of the atomizer, and all it's going to touch in that center is going to be the rubber grommet on the inside, and then the connection to the brass pin. So at this stage, here's what you should have. Your little assembly like that, your coil sitting on this side of the chair, 90-degree bend, another 90-degree bend, and some people like to put a little bend in the other side of the lead just to make it go more toward the center hole of your atomizer shell. So we'll just do that for my ease and comfort. All right, so I'm just going to set this down in the jig for a second, and I'm going to grab my atomizer shell, which is now dried off. Okay, so The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the new coil inside the atomizer shell. So I'll walk you through that now. Again, some people might do this in the jig, and if you were going to do it in the jig, what you would do is you would make sure these two leads are going through the hole in the bottom of your atomizer, like I'm doing right now, and I hope you can see. And it would sit on it like this, right? So that it gives you a nice, stable work platform, I guess I should say. But again, a lot of the times I like to just use my finger instead. So anyways, what we're gonna do is, basically for the little notch that you see here in the atomizer shell, you see that little notch right there? What we're gonna do is take the lead that does not have the bend in it. You know the one I just creased? You see it in there, if the light's okay? We're gonna take the one that is not bent, okay? So the one that we didn't put the big 90-degree bend in, and that's the one that we are going to put through that little gap. So the one without the sharp bend in it, okay? The one that doesn't have the 90-degree bends, you take and you bend it. Here, I'll try to get the best shot I can. I'm gonna remove the jig because I don't usually use it myself, but you might still at this point. I use my finger just to hold it tight. I hold it tight like this, so most people are comfortable with that. Anyways, we are going to take the one that we did not bend, and we're gonna bend it into this little notch right there. Okay, so I'll do that now. I am bending it in, just like that. Okay, now it's bent and sitting right there. And now I'm gonna cut it with my flush cutters. So again, get it nice and flush. Go right up to it like this. And cut it flush. Just like that. So now we've got one cut, okay? Now we have that lead sticking straight out the center. Like I said, this is why we bent it, so it's not touching the metal, right? So the next thing we're gonna do is take this black rubber grommet, the original one that we took out, because again, it has those ridges that hold everything in place tighter on the inside. So we're gonna take this black rubber grommet and place it around this lead. So it's going around this lead, but the lead that is bent into the notch is going to sit outside the rubber, okay? So one in, one out. So at this point, we're gonna put the rubber grommet back in where it needs to be. Sometimes it can be a little bit fiddly, so a little tricky getting the rubber back in there. So I'm going to do my best here. And it looks like it's not going to give me too much trouble right now. So there you go, it's back in there. Okay. So at this point, usually I will take my flush cutters and I will cut this flush to the top of the hole, just because it makes for an easier cut. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take my flush cutters and go right even with the top of this thing, nice and flush. And give it a snip. There you go. So that's what we've got. One cut lead on the inside of the rubber, one cut lead on the outside of the rubber inside the notch, okay? Now the only thing left for us to do is to reinsert our brass pin. So we'll insert it like this. Just make sure that you're not just make sure that you're considering the position of the lead and you're not like mushing it around. So kind of go beside it and wedge the pin in to the hole right next to it so that they are touching and you're establishing a connection. Then you push in the pin nice and firm so it's sitting there at the bottom, and we should have ourselves a working rebuilt atomizer. Just like that, really is that easy. So the inside of it just looks the way it did before. There you go. We've got it rebuilt, brass pin in the bottom, rubber grommet, the whole bit. So there's really only one thing left to do, and that is to pop it into the peak and test it out, and hopefully we get that satisfying buzz that lets us know that the atomizer rebuild is working. So just gonna make sure my pin is nice and firm in there, and we're putting it back in the peak. And if we were successful, we should hear oh, it's a quiet buzz, but it's buzzing anyway. It's working. So there you go. Successful rebuild. Ooh, and it gives off some good heat. You can see the element getting red. Very quiet buzz, but anyway, it's there. It's working. There you go. That's how you rebuild a Peak atomizer.